Obviously, not a lot has changed since we were with one another after the Southern Illinois game. We've changed our focus now to going to Charleston. Obviously, Charleston's a great tournament. It's got a very, very good field, and most importantly, in my mind, it prepares you for the Big 12 tournament and hopefully for the NCAA tournament, because you're going to have to play back-to-back games with very short preps, and when you do that, it has an opportunity to expose some of your weaknesses, because you're not going to be able to prep as much and game plan as much. You're going to have to rely on your defensive principles, and you're going to have to rely on what you've been taught since practice began. So it'll be a good test for us. I'm excited.
Is there something that you're saying, okay, if we go to Charleston and do this, I'll feel really good about that trip?
I approach every game the same way. We should win those games. So I would want to return home with the championship and be 3-0. Now, will we do that? I can't say that. But you play the game to win the game. And I'm not wired to say I'm excited or I'm happy if we go 2-1 or 1-2. That's not who they hired when they hired me.
We talked after the win over Southern Illinois about the last portion of the game, losing that 18-point lead. As you went through corrections and went over that, how is this team on listening and saying, oh, okay, well, we'll do it this way? I mean, are they good on corrections?
Obviously not. I mean, we've had several games where we continue to give up leads. So, I mean, you tell me, you cover us, you're not a dummy. I mean.
Yeah, but I missed the middle one.
Well, that's your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they understand. They're not dumb people. They get it, but they've got to correct it. I mean, we're at the point of the season where you know what's going on. You've done a good job, and then you still keep doing the same things over and over. You take bad shots, you have defensive lapses, and eventually that's going to get you beat. And that's that's what I tell them every single day. So we've got to fix it. I think against Southern Illinois, we held them to 19 points over 14 minutes. And then we gave up 19 points in the next 6 minutes, which is absurd. So we've got to be better in those areas for sure.
You talked last game too about Bryce's leadership role. In situations like that, who is your coach on the floor? Who do you depend on that is gonna, if you're letting them try and fix it themselves, who's the guy that's going to lead that process?
I haven't found him yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've got several guys that have tried at different points in the game and tried during different games, but no one's emerged to be that guy. Bryce was voted the #1 vote getter in terms of being a captain for our team, by his peers, and Bryce has done a good job in trying to lead. But when things went awry the other day, he was a part of the issue, and it's not his fault. I'm not blaming him, but he didn't right the ship, nor did the other 4 guys. So we're still looking for that.
Is that a byproduct of just having so many guys, a new roster, and learning the process?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked if there's not a lot of teams across the country that are saying the same things that I am. A lot of coaches across the country saying the same things that I am. I think it's a little bit of the byproduct of the transfer portal. I also think it's a little bit of a byproduct of this group that we currently have. They don't always like to get on to their teammate for fear of offending them, or for fear of there being some sort of argument or whatever. And so sometimes they hold their tongues, but then sometimes when they do it, doesn't work out well. So it's just a tough deal for this group and this generation. They don't necessarily always handle criticism well, even when it's true.
You have tournament experience, NCAA tournament, conference tournament. How do you and your staff kind of approach this little tournament of you scout all 8 teams, or do you look at obviously Florida Atlantic and then go from there, or how do you kind of approach who you might play?
So you kind of you predict as best as you can, right? I mean, we obviously are focused on Florida Atlantic, and then Drake and Miami, because you're playing two of those 3 opponents, right? And then you break off some of the other staff on the teams that you feel like you could end up playing. The good thing about this tournament is you're going to get live scouts on Thursday and Friday. So when you play Sunday on the other side of the bracket, whomever you play, you should be able to have a good grasp of those teams because you've watched them play live.
Steve, you were talking about guys maybe not taking criticism as well. Wasn't so long ago that in college basketball you had guys that had been in the program for a while, and maybe they could say something. Is the way that the rosters are turning over, has that exacerbated maybe teams having a little bit of an issue figuring that stuff out?
Sure, no questions. No questions at all. I mean, when you have all 14 new players on a team, they're still feeling each other out, even though we're on practice number 38 or 39, right? They're still feeling each other out, and you don't have somebody as good as Bryce has been. You don't have somebody that when they walk onto the floor, everybody looks at him and goes, you know what, that dude's a first-team All Big 12 player. He's done it before at a high level. He's gotten to the NCAA tournament. I might want to listen to him. Now, we got a lot of guys that want to be that guy, as does every other team, but right now we haven't had somebody rise to the top and be that man. So we're still looking for that. That's why we play the game.
I know it's only 4 games, sample size is still small, but it's not an insignificant number of games either. What's been your take on just how this team has adapted stylistically to things you want offensively, defensively, as you look at numbers and trends and those sorts of things?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we're still trying to figure out is lineups and what lineups work well together. And I don't have a big enough sample size to say, hey, this is my best lineup to start. Obviously, we've had a suspension which jumbled some things up. And more importantly, who's my best lineup to finish? So this will give us more data this weekend, and I think there'll be good games. So I think this weekend will be fantastic for us. But with that being said, we're still the team that is like a little bit of a roller coaster. I think that we've gotten to the point where we do play hard for most of the game. We rebound the ball at a pretty high rate for most of the game. Knock on wood, we have not turned the ball over for most of the game, which all those things are winning traits. Our problem is the bottom will fall out and we'll give up a 16-2 run, right? And so we've got to figure that out and do that quickly. We want to figure it out after wins, of course, but not to jinx us. It's going to come. It's going to bite you at some point because you can't continue to allow that to happen.
When you look at the first couple games, maybe it's some of those things you just mentioned. Anything good or bad that surprised you about the first part of the season?
The lack of turnovers, because I've told you guys all along that we turn the ball over way too much. I just looked at I ended our practice stats last night, and so that would be, I want to say 8 weeks maybe. And last week we had finally made it into a positive assist to turnover rate. And this week we were positive assist to turnover by, I want to say 30 to 40, which is fantastic because, for the longest time, guys, we were 50 assists, 100 turnovers. And so we've done a great job with that. And so that's probably been the biggest surprise.
You talked briefly after the game the other night about the road trip bonding, how excited you were to get this team off together. You've done it 3 times as a head coach, and you've seen it done in your years as an assistant. Do you let that kind of happen naturally, or there's some things you kind of do to get that done?
Yeah, we like to let it happen naturally as much as possible. With this group, though, we'll do a couple of different things, especially if we can win our first couple games because you're off on Saturday. And obviously Charleston has a tremendous amount of history, both good and bad to it. So I'd like to be able to take those guys to experience some of that. But yeah, and this is a little bit out of the wheelhouse because you don't typically I haven't done this a whole lot with with basketball teams, but we're going to try and force some things in terms of conversations, and we'll do those things Tuesday and Wednesday especially.
This will be the FAU will be by far the biggest team that you guys have played at this point. Are you intrigued to see how your guys will handle those bigs that they have?
Yeah, absolutely. They're also the fastest team we played. I think as of last week, they were the fastest team in the country. I think we were, we might have been 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there. So, I mean, it should be a fun game, but they've got size and length, but they're skilled. You know, a couple of those guys on that roster we obviously had looked at during the transfer portal last spring and the summer. He's got a good team. He's done a really good job with that team. I think it should be a fun game.
Coach, FAU is currently 12th in three-point percentage. Is there an approach that you want to change defensively for this game?
No, I mean we'll stick with what we've always done, right? I mean our biggest problem again is I don't know that we're poor at guarding the three-point line as much as we're poor at times guarding the basketball, and then now we have to help, and then now they're getting us in rotations, and now they're shooting good threes. With that being said, I still think that our numbers are a little bit skewed because of our first two opponents with Green Bay and with St. Thomas. Both those guys shoot an inordinate amount of threes. But with that being said, we're about to see the same with FAU on Thursday, and they probably have a little more experience and a little more talent.
One more.